Hey, I'm Lily. I'm a former registered nurse. I am now a PGY2 or second year radiology resident. I just want to have a casual conversation about how an advanced practice provider can pursue medical school. So those of you who are CRNAs, NPs, and PAs who are not necessarily RNs, people who have basically gone beyond the RN role and have been in their advanced role and now still want to go to medical school. Is it for you? Can you do it? That is the question. I wanted to make this video because I recently met with a CRNA who wants to go to medical school, and we had a one-on-one appointment where I was able to kind of get into the deep reasons why she wants to pursue medical school. I think at a surface level, when people like admissions committees or even just regular people like me and you who see a person who is in the role of a CRNA who has their doctorate in nursing practice, who sees that on a surface level from the outside and says, why would you want to go to medical school? You've gone this far in your career, you're making good money, you work good hours. Why would you want to give all of that up for more debt, tons of lost time opportunity? Going to medical school takes a lot of time to finish your pre-med prerequisites, 4 years of medical school, plus 3 to 7 years of residency. So it's a lot of sacrifice. For a person looking from the outside in, they may look at a CRNA and say, you are so successful in your career. Why would you want to give that up to go and pursue something like medical school? And I think that's a legitimate question to ask yourself and for admissions committees and basically anybody who ever runs into you for the rest of your life. They'll ask you this question: why? Why would you want to do that? For any of you who are in an advanced practice role who wants to go to medical school, you have to have a very strong why, because you will be questioned about it incessantly. Not only is the why important into answering that question, it's also going to be so important in how it will motivate you to finish this journey, because it is a long and arduous journey. As you all know, you've worked in medicine, you've worked in healthcare. Medicine does not love us. We have to really make a conscious effort into putting in our energy to go into this field. It takes a lot of energy. It's a lot of stress. Pursuing medicine is not easy. So the why is so important. And I want to discuss that a little further because it's such a deeply personal question. Everyone's why is going to be different. What I love about when I met this CRNA, her why was so impactful and meaningful. When I heard her say it, I just felt like she was so authentic in why she wanted to pursue medicine. I can see in her eyes that she won't be happy until she does this. And it will be an itching reminder every time she gets this feeling. It will gnaw at her until she does it. And yeah, maybe she'll be fine in her CRNA role, but she's always going to have that feeling in the back of her head. And she reminds me so much of myself because I went through that as an RN, and I didn't want to keep having this gnawing background noise telling me, what if you did this thing? I didn't want that regret. So a lot of backstory, but I want to share her why I think it's such a meaningful, impactful why. Basically, she's a CRNA. She provides anesthesia. She does a lot of it independently because you can as a CRNA, which is wonderful. And she was trained and received a doctorate in nursing practice. So she has her terminal degree in nursing. And I'm sure she's an excellent CRNA. But what she told me is that as a CRNA, you're really trained to do and manage the bread and butter cases. So she's really good at that. She's great at getting in and doing a standard case. Now, if anything deviates from that baseline, she was telling me that she had some issues with an EKG that she just really didn't have a lot of confidence reading. If things deviate from that baseline, how do you approach it? How do you systematically go through and say, this is the right thing to do now, and this other thing can wait? And what ends up happening on a weekly basis for her is that she ends up having to call the doctor. And that doctor provides her reassurance. Typically, it's in the form of, go ahead and do this thing and it will fix your problem. And then they'll hang up because they're busy and they have to see other patients and do other things and tend to other things. And she's kind of left with this question of, well, why did you suggest that? Why is this going to fix this? And why should I not be worried right now? And that kind of gap in her knowledge is what's pushing her and motivating her. She wants to fill those holes. Being able to manage the bread and butter can be satisfying for people. That's not a reason to not be proud of what you do. And I am also not saying that advanced practice providers cannot ever manage a complex case. It's just that when things get complex for this particular person, they are left with questions of wanting to know more, wanting to fill those gaps. Being able to fill those gaps, they feel they can only get from medical education, which I think is absolutely fair. Obviously, I am retelling the story. I don't have that emotional attachment to it as the CRNA does, but I can just tell from the way that they presented their feelings about this that it is true and authentic to them. But people have fears. When you get to that terminal role of a nurse, you will be challenged about why you're leaving that role. And there's fear in leaving. What will other people think? Will people take me seriously? Will people think that I'm actually not that serious about going to medical school and that I want it for the wrong reasons? One, I think that if you can come up with a very strong and authentic why, like she did, you'll be able to convince people because people will see that in you. They will see your drive and they will see that authenticity. It will come through. It will come through naturally. So I don't think that people should be worried about that aspect of it. Now, people are afraid of the sunk cost fallacy where you've put all of this time and energy into this other field and now you're leaving it. Is that such a dumb thing to do? Honestly, like I said, a lot of this is such deeply personal questions. I felt that same way. I put so much energy into my nursing job previously. I worked as a nurse for 5 years. I was good at what I did. I enjoyed it. But am I going to give all of that up and now do this other thing? Sometimes we just need to shift our perspective and say, it's not that I'm giving up all of this time and energy and clinical experience that I've had, because all of that accumulates into your personal story and will apply to your future role as a physician. All of her CRNA background is not going to just disappear when she starts medical school. She'll be able to draw from all of that clinical experience, and it will only make her a stronger medical student and a stronger resident and whatever future physician she wants to be. She has all of this clinical experience she can draw from. Like, that's amazing. So I don't want people to fall into the trap of the sunk cost fallacy and think that you shouldn't go and pursue your dreams because you're giving up everything that you put your energy towards previously. It's a fallacy for a reason. So don't get caught up in that. The other thing is, will people judge me for changing my career? Yeah, they probably will. And a lot of people judge me too. They still do because I publicly talk about this all the time. Like I said, things are deeply personal. Keep it that way. Know that you're not alone. Because people think I'm leaving my advanced practice provider role to go become a doctor and that like you're not allowed to change your mind in life, especially later in life. Like all of a sudden you turn 30 something and you have to stay doing what you're doing for the rest of your life and you're not allowed to change your mind. And that is such a stupid mindset. That's what I think. Because you have decades and decades of more work experience to put into the world and to work. Why would you think that you can't change your mind now? Don't forget the fact that people get their MDs or DOs, they finish residency, they work as attendings, and then they can change their mind as attendings and go back to do residency all over again in another specialty. The example I like to give is my mentor in medical school, who was a family medicine doctor. He had his MD, worked as a family medicine doctor for like 15 years, and decided, I don't want to do family medicine anymore. I'm going to go back to residency. Became a resident after years and years of being an attending in emergency medicine, and is now a board certified emergency medicine doctor. That when I met him, he was an emergency medicine doctor. He allowed himself to change his mind even well into his career. So to think that you can't change your mind when you're older, that somehow life just ends for you and that you're stuck in whatever you're doing at 35 or 40 years old is such a limiting mindset to have. Free yourself from that, and I think it will help you feel more freedom to explore and do other things that you may have thought was impossible for you. Of course, there's a lot of factors to consider as a person who's into their career. Maybe you have a family, maybe you have debt from CRNA or NP school. So you do have to consider that. When you go to medical school, you'll likely take on hundreds of thousands of dollars of more student loan debt. Those are things to consider. I don't want to take that lightly. People should definitely talk about finances with their families, talk about it seriously with yourself. Is this a financially sound decision? In the end, I think that a long, healthy career in medicine will pay back in dividends, large dividends. It's a huge upfront investment because of the student loan debt, but then you get a huge return on investment after, decades of work in the medical field. That's a different consideration when you're older. And that is also going to be a financially personal decision. Not everyone who has trained in these mid-level positions come out with a ton of debt. So if you're going into medical school with no debt, that might be a lot more helpful. That might be something to consider. Or apply to medical schools that have full tuition scholarships. Apply to as many scholarships as you possibly can. And in the end, likely you'll have to take out student loans. Those are very serious things to consider. I don't take it lightly, and I'm not a financial advisor, obviously. These are important considerations for people who are non-traditional path and making a huge career change. The bottom line is that you're going to have to silence the noise. Everyone's going to question you. Everyone's going to ask you why you're doing this, especially because you're in such an advanced position already. Likely you're already able to work independently. People are going to want to know, why do you want to keep going? And as long as you have an authentic why, I think it can pull you through all of that noise and get you to where you want to go. I'm here to encourage you and help you. Know that I have a guide that helps people navigate all of this noise and create a strong medical school application, especially if you have hundreds of thousands of clinical hours under your belt. Most of the pre-med resources out there are not catered to people who have hundreds and thousands of hours of clinical experience. So I wrote a guide because I had so many questions on how to make my application strong. That guide is linked in the bio. I'm also happy to answer any questions you put in the comments. I hope that helps. I hope that's encouraging. If you are an NP, PA, CRNA, know that that doesn't have to be the end of the line for you if you don't want it to be. I know of medical students who are former NPs, former PAs. They're out there, and you're not alone.